Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Let's just jump right into the chapters. We're going to start off with One Piece. And the chapter begins with the cover page of Chiffon and Lola sending out Rope to save Pound after they realize who he is. Both Gotti and Capone are just at this point, or I guess Capone's more just over everything at this point. But the chapter starts properly as we see one of the Toby Ropo, the shark guy, who was tied up by Kayashiro. And he's saying he doesn't really care about the past, but he'll now more or less take his revenge. And they have to get up to Kaido, where then we see the battle raging on between the mink and Kaido. It then shows Jack, who's been more or less eating some hits from what it looks like, charging through. The rest of the Red Scabbers are ready and waiting to fight Jack, but as they're about to fight, Nekomamushi and Inuyarashi cut in, and we only still see their silhouetted Sulong form as they charge in against Jack. It then cuts away back to the performing stage inside the dome, where we see Queen and King talking. Queen seems to realize that his whole prison was evacuated and can't seem to figure out why, and it doesn't sit right with him, so something will be up with that, I'm sure. King calls in the Toby Ropo, or calls them up. We then cut to Drake and Hawkins talking, and Drake asks Hawkins why he isn't joining the group, and Drake even says if Hawkins was going to betray them, now's the time to do it. Hawkins then says no, refuses it, and then says a certain man has only a 1% chance to survive until tomorrow. Who that is, I can only speculate. Drake says it sucks to be that one person. He answers the phone from King, and King then says basically that there's about the invasion of 5,000 intruders upon the feast of 30,000, and that it's the biggest disaster in Onigashima history, and the internal power struggle is on hold of capturing Yamato, and basically their new mission is to stop the invaders. We see Page 1 and Ulti still together. She wants to piggyback right up to the roof. Page 1 refuses, and then she gets angry at King. We then see one of the Toby Ropo. I'm going to make a guess it's Who's Who, which is the guy in the horned mask, though I could be wrong on that. I'm just taking a swing in the dark on that one, because at this point I don't feel like looking it up. He goes in and asks Drake to join him in killing the man he wants to kill, which is Queen. Drake doesn't want to join his squabbles, but then ends up joining it. Hawkins seems to read a card that makes him pause. Then in the next page we see the numbers still attacking, and a bunch of the more or less grunts on both sides. The long-headed ninja overseer, I guess, walks away, which is interesting. Perhaps he's going to go revive Orochi, maybe. That one's just a swing in the dark, though. I don't think that's true, but we will see. As it continues, they don't even know that they're giants. They just think they're the very large humans. The rest of the Yakuza keep attacking at them, and they tell the Straw Hats that they'll cover path for them so that they can go and conserve their strength. One of the giant ones swings its club, but then Zoro cuts the club up, and the swords are back on the right. So much for that. But Luffy then charges through and says don't push it, or don't basically to the grunts, don't hurt themselves, they're monsters. Jinbei grabs the club from the sky with one hand, the piece that fell. Luffy then says if they're as big, they're supposed to be like oars, it took all of them to beat oars, but that was a long time ago, is what Luffy exclaims. And Luffy goes right to Gear 4th, ready to punch him, and Hyogoro is still surprised to see Gear 4th and even calls him a guardian deity. Luffy's ready to attack. Then we cut to the next page, which shows that Drake is now hurt, as it was all an ambush to show that Drake was the traitor. Even Hawkins is in on it, and they explain that Drake let Kid go, Hawkins exposes that Drake let Kid go after they attacked, and now they want answers from him, but he says they'll have to kill him before he gets in. He won't say. Queen is pretty happy about that, because he's pretty good at breaking men's spirits, according to him. He realizes he can't get out, so then either he sets off an explosion, or just a lucky explosion got him out of there. Drake then jumps off and leaves. He tries to figure out a way to go back to the Navy, but can't. He says he still has one hope, and he attacks the other number, and basically, through accident, synchronizes an attack with Luffy as both the numbers go down. Drake, remembering what Kobe said, which was that Luffy was amazing and that he can be trusted, Drake then shouts that for his own reasons, he's an army of one and wants to help, or join, he wants to join Luffy's side, and Luffy just goes, what? Which is, oh boy, it's ridiculous how everything's going in this. But this was a pretty fight-heavy chapter, which is always fun to see. Yeah, that was the end of the chapter. But it was a good chapter as a whole. It really helped continue to set up the arc as a whole. And having it that Drake is actually the one that turned sides here at this point. I still had pseudo thought that Hawkins would, which I mean he still might when he sees that the tides are turning towards Luffy's favor. I think he's just sort of waiting to see if it comes true, because I think that someone with a 1% chance of surviving is Kaido, not Luffy. I think that's why he kept it vague, because I think most people assume it's Luffy, but I would put more stock into the fact that Kaido is the one who will be killed by the end of the arc, the end of the whole thing. That's my take on why he didn't say whoever it was, just like with how all the subtle hints at certain people with Back of the Reverie, with having Vivi's photo and Shirahoshi's, Luffy's, and Blackbeard's, and even to some degree with Shanks showing up at the Reverie when he did, and wanting to talk about a certain pirate. I don't know whether it's Luffy or if it's someone else. I think he's more or less trying to disguise certain things, his true intentions. So it'll be interesting. It's on break next week, so we won't be knowing those answers until the next chapter. But overall, I would give that chapter an A. That was a fun chapter, and things continue to move. We're probably gonna stick with a whole bunch of people in the One Piece community are thinking it's going to be a countdown to chapter 1000 where something major is going to happen, and I can certainly see that, so we'll see. Next, we're going to go on to Burn the Witch, which starts with where it left off in the last chapter, which was having Balgo be in trouble by Bruno, which is the name I'm probably going to go for now, more for easy sake. Bruno is the one who is the Minister of Ink, who has his own division that was attacking him in the last chapter, Bangnif, but I'll call him Bruno now. Balgo doesn't know what's going on, and Bruno more or less realizes that they haven't told him, and he still doesn't care. Nini and Noel formulate a plan to try to attack, or split off and try to save, I guess, Balgo and Macy. They're getting ready to go when Macy ends up getting like a feeling for Ellie, her dragon. When Ellie then goes in for an attack on Bruno, Bruno more or less doesn't care and is about to destroy it. But then it does some sort of special technique that even shocks all of them. Nearly hurts Bruno, but then blasts up in the air. Then we see it's not the same dragon as it changes again, and we see it's some sort of mythical dragon, some sort of monster-like one that changed its form because it's the moonlight and it's midnight. Or not midnight, it's just nighttime. Bruno then suspects that it's a Marchens, I guess, which is a rumored super fairy tale dragon. There's just only 7 of them. Yeah, 7 of them. And theirs just so happened to be Cinderella, which changes at moonlight and at night. It's said to be really powerful, and it sends out star ash out in the air, which is just fancy words for saying it's the dragon sends out big bombs that are just dust-sized, which are enormous. Bruno then holds off on Balgo's execution, saying that eliminating Marchens, who are apparently the progenitors of dark dragons, meaning they're the reason dark dragons exist, I guess, if I'm thinking of progenitor is the right word for precursor, maybe? I don't know. He thinks that getting rid of the Martian will boost his stock, like his reputation and so on. So he plans on fighting the dragon, and he goes off to fight the dragon. Nini and Noel, or Nini thinks to go and help, but then Noel says no, pretty much. Nini asks why, and Noel explains if they get reinforcements, they'll just kill Balgo. Noel then notices that the small dust was coming at them. They end up escaping with Balgo and Macy. As they're going, they more or less try to lead. They drop them off somewhere, as then we see the fight with Bruno and the giant dragon. He summons something to attack it, but the dragon just blows it away. Then, as he's getting ready to continue to fight, Noelle and Ninny show back up to assist. He then says to cover him and that they have to try to break the crown on top of the dragon's head. Noelle says that's just the fairy tale part, and Bruno says that's all they've got to fight it is the fairy tales. So he says if they prove more or less helpful in backing him up, he'll bump their value up and even accept if they transfer to his division, which both of them said no. He then said they're getting on their nerves. They separate. Noelle and Ninny basically have like a prison spell that they put on the dragon. The dragon tries to get away. He sends out some sort of ink, I guess, seal goop type thing that holds him in place, which I guess causes damage. He knows it won't kill him, but it might like do enough damage that the dragon will poke its head out, and so he can attack more precisely. Dragon doesn't do that. The dragon just makes a huge explosion, which blows all three of them away, and is completely fine afterwards. Baelgo then realizes that it's a monster. So do Noelle and Ninny. Baelgo asks if Noelle's okay. It heads towards Noelle, Ninny, Baelgo, and Macy's position. Ninny and Noelle put up shields. Macy thinks Ellie's just trying to come and see her, which isn't the truth. Ninny then explains no. Huge blasts come through, and it hits Ninny pretty hard because she was distracted by Macy. Macy then tries to plead with her dragon, Ellie, but Ellie does not recognize. They then put up their shields again to protect Macy and co. Where then Ninny spouts something similar to what she said in the opening chapter about how, more or less, fairy tales are crap, and that the ones who make the real magic are them, is the gist of it. I'm kind of heavily summarizing. That's what I got out of it. Ninny and Noelle are getting ready to fight. Baelgo asks if he can do anything. They basically tell him no, because he's awful, and to sit in the corner and cry. Then out of nowhere, because he has this little trumpet that they gave him, like, that if he was in trouble to call on the trumpet. So he starts holding it with two hands like a sword, and a blade comes out of the trumpet, and everyone's shocked and has no idea what it is. Then the dragon stops at the sight of the sword, and then a beam just pierces through its head, destroying the crown and killing the dragon. It's then shown that it was back at the office. Their boss shot that shot and killed the dragon, and so many questions. Oh, I have nothing. Then the next page shows that Ninny and Noelle didn't get too much compensation from it because a lot of it was deducted out of all the property damage that was caused. So they got like hardly anything for it. And they're saying that Bruno got the kill, even though neither one of them did. So Ninny's not happy, but that's what they have to deal with. Also, now they have to watch after Macy now, also, because she's a dragon-clad also. So they have two of them, and Ninny and Noelle don't seem all that pleased, which is really funny. So now I have to house both of them. They're not able to do anything, but Noelle then asks what's going to happen to Baelgo, and from what I can gather and from what it implies, they more or less stopped his elimination, like, edict, and it's actually Bruno that suggests it and puts him under a punitive dragon release application. What that means, I don't know. Maybe someone smarter than me can tell me, but from what I can gather is he's off the hook because they more or less are figuring out that there's something with him that can make dragons attracted to even other people. That they're saying that Baelgo had encountered Macy before she met Ellie, and that he might be their trump card to defeating the Martians. We then see one of the other directors go where Ellie and Noelle's boss were when he took the shot at Martian Dragon, and realizes he was right, or that individual, the director, was right to not overestimate the son of a hero. What that means, I don't know. So then the last pages, we see Baelgo, who then says that he got his mantle and pipe taken away, that he couldn't keep them. Then Noelle hugs him, which I was sort of surprised by, and so was Baelgo. He then asks if something bad happened. She then says no. Then he asks if something good happened. She then said yes, and he says that's good for Noelle. So that's the end of at least this portion of Bird and the Witch. From what I've heard, they plan on doing multiple parts for it, meaning in essence, it turns into seasonal manga where it'll come out every so often with a couple more limited parts and so on like I thought. But that's a pretty satisfying end for now. So that's the end of Burn the Witch as we know it for now. I'll end up covering it again whenever it comes out in the future. Overall, I enjoyed the series. I think Tite Kubo is actually passionate about this one, just like how he was in the early days of Bleach, and he knows what he wants to do with it. That's how I see it anyway. I look forward to how it continues and what will happen as it keeps going, if it does, mind you. So, it'll be fun to see. I would give that chapter... What would I give that chapter? I'd probably give it an A, as it was a fine and fun ending, leaving some mystery for the next series, when/if it happens. As a whole, this first 4 chapters, I'd probably give it a solid B+. It was a good introduction to the whole world and the whole premise of it. So, I look forward to seeing where it goes. Next, we are on to Black Clover. So the chapter starts more or less where it left off again, where you have Noct explaining who the Dark Triad are, which you have, or that his plan is that he can infiltrate the castle without being noticed, and they can storm it and take out the Dark Triad separately. You have Dante, who has gravity and body magic. You have Xenon, who has spiritual and bone magic, and you have Vinica, who has cursed warding and blood magic, which I didn't know she even had cursed warding. You have Yuno, who still remembers Xenon, who just tore through the Golden Dawn like it was nothing, brooding over him. Noct then explains that he can't take a large group, so he'll have to do it individually to get them in and out if they have a chance of winning. Jack then says it's obvious they'll choose among the captains. Yuno then asks if he can go. He even knows it's insolent, but he has to go. Jack says no, and that they've already lost, so what would be the point? Fuegoleon tries to reason with it and say that someone will have to stay behind to protect the Clover Kingdom, which is important, but then I think it's Noct wants to ask him something, which he does, and he explains that apparently there's a resistance force in the Spade Kingdom that opposes the Dark Triad. He explains that the other day a member of that resistance sent someone to the Clover Kingdom, and he believes that and Noct believes that that member is at Yuno's home. Noct then asks who is Yuno. Jack is confused, so is Asta. Then Yuno explains that he's told that he is a prince of the Spade Kingdom. Everyone's shocked. Asta especially is shocked. He then continues to explain that they evacuated him to the Clover Kingdom when the Dark Triad took over. Nezel, is it Nezel? Noel's eldest brother, I think it's Nezel, is now, I don't know whether he feels better or not, but he more or less, he says it explains why he has so much magic. Continues to explain that the guy at his place, meaning the church, is a member of the old Spade family, royal family, like a servant. And so he knows all the castle designs. Jack doesn't care or doesn't think it's a good idea because he thinks the servant could be a spy, and he doesn't even trust Yuno. He then explains if he's not the one to save Vengeance, then there's no point. He then explains that ever since the elf incident, everyone's been suspicious of Vengeance, and he can understand why, because he couldn't choose between humans and elves. But even so, he continues to fight, and before Yuno passed out, he saw that Vengeance broke free, I'm guessing, and tried to save as many of the Golden Dawn members as he could. Xenon says he should get rid of the baggage so that he could win, but he chose not to because the Golden Dawn members are his pride and his dream. Yuno then continues to explain that he was captured because he was protecting all of them. And he explains to the rest of the captains he may be a traitor, but to the Golden Dawn members he's their captain. Xenon thinks he explains that Xenon thinks he killed all of the Golden Dawn, but because of Vengeance, pretty much half of them survived. He then, with resolve, still thinks the Golden Dawn is the strongest Night Squad, as then it's shown that he's gathering magic, and he says he will be the one to save Vengeance. Jack more or less is about to say to him to shut up, But then you see his little fairy spirit gathering magic so that she can take out Xenon. Noct more or less sees potential in him and says that he doesn't hate people like that. Asta's reassured that no matter who he might be, Yuno is still Yuno. Noct then explains that they're going to depart for the Spade Kingdom in 2 days. He'll send the word on the details of the strategy later. Asta and Yuno say they'll save their captains. Fuegoleon then asks about the Heart Kingdom. They haven't been able to make contact with them since yesterday. Noct then explains that the only reason he was able to get so much information is because all the Dark Triad were gone, and that Vinica, he explains, might have attacked the Heart Kingdom. We then cut to Noelle opening her eyes and seeing that all of the Eye of the Midnight Sun are around her. What that means, I don't know. But that's how the chapter ends, with seeing all of them, so now we have even more allies on the horizon, which in truth is never a bad thing. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes, per se, with now the Eye of the Midnight Sun joining in and being a part of the fight against the Spade Kingdom. Probably for them, they've seen what's going on. I also wonder what the state of the Heart Kingdom's at, because I think Fuegoleon was getting to the point of probably asking them for help. I think he might have even said it, I just didn't see it, or am I re-looking at the pages? So, that's that for Black Clover. I wonder where it'll go in just 2 days. I don't think Asta will be able to master his devil by that point, but he might have something new up his sleeve by then. Do they win? I don't know. Unless they have Mary Oleania, or whatever, Fuegoleon's sister, show up and just win. She's pretty much the only thing that probably could, but we'll see. I'd give that chapter a B. I enjoyed it. It was a good chapter with information. I wonder where it's going, what's going to be in the next chapter, but overall, I did enjoy that one. So, next, we are on to Jujutsu Kaisen. The chapter starts with the spirit manipulating guy, who I think they said his name last chapter, and I just completely forgot what it was. And Itadori starting their fight with Spirit Guy throwing a manipulated spirit at Itadori, who then dodges out of the way, only for Spirit Guy to be behind him, and uses some sort of monstrous technique. They then explain the technique as his soul manipulation, that he can manipulate and merge multiple souls, and then he repelled it and fused too many that were rejected at Itadori. He then climbed through the rejection and punched Itadori in the face. We then find out he modified his body to give himself like a huge wedge, that if he had put his back more into the punch, it would have split Itadori's skull. Itadori then asks him how he can kill so many people so frequently, and he says, how can you play with so many people's lives like that? The cursed spirit manipulator more or less says what he says in a condescending way, if he should warn them more, like should he be remorseful the next time he kills someone, and makes a joke that he promises he will. He says he'll give him a simple answer because Itadori's a simple guy. He makes his hand look like the friend Itadori made, but then Spirit Manipulator killed him. The Spirit Manipulator guy then says that Itadori is him, that they're one and the same, as he more or less not kills, but metaphorically. He puts his finger through his hand that looks like Itadori's friend. Spirit Manipulator, more or less, to some degree, says he's just kidding, but then says that until Itadori accepts that fact, that I guess he's also a monster, is what he's getting at, he won't be able to beat Spirit Manipulator. Itadori then says, because he's aggravated that the Spirit Manipulator guy talks too much, Itadori then starts to concentrate and plans on beating him as a Jujutsu sorcerer. The Spirit Manipulator starts getting ready and planning out certain things, which then he knows that Itadori is probably predicting the same thing. So his plan is just to beat him using maximum strength and being in the same form. He plans on just stabbing him in the heart really fast before he even realizes it, but when he goes for the punch, Itadori is gone. They then explain that more or less he had a controlled fall, that he was able to release his knees, hips, and shoulders to fall without the other guy noticing, I guess. And from the lower position, used the momentum to give him a good kick in the face. Then with that same momentum, kicked him in the stomach and pushed him away. But the Spirit Manipulator manipulated his arm to create some sort of jagged knife thorn thing whipped the ground, but Itadori moved out of the way. They're getting ready for round 2. That's how that chapter ended, which was a good chapter overall. I've been enjoying that one, Jujutsu Kaisen, as I've been reading it with some more paying closer attention to it, which is always fun. It'll be interesting to see how that all works out, if Itadori actually wins this time, or I don't even know. Because like I said, I don't know where it's going from here. I don't even know. I couldn't even figure out where it could go. At this point, I have a bit of a slightly better image of how Chainsaw Man will go than I do here with Jujutsu Kaisen. So I'm just going along for the ride and just gonna take in the good art and whatever happens. So I would give that chapter a B. It was a good fight chapter, as they've been having recently, which is always good to see. With that, we're going to move on to We Never Learn, which starts off with the memory of Noriyuki giving Asumi the Doya-chan land invitation, which I'm again assuming is some sort of fictional variant of Disneyland of some kind, where Asumi rejected the ticket. We then see a hot spring that Noriyuki's at, which he was invited by the old cranky guy at the festival, said he can go there. He is there, he's relaxing, but then he remembers what happened at the festival and the kiss and the so on. He then asks more or less what's wrong with him and why did he do that. He hasn't been able to look her in the eye because of it. And he realizes, basically after him trying to give her that invitation, they started to grow more distant from each other. And that he's guessing that he got carried away because when he's on this island when he first got there and more or less met her again, things got back to normal to some degree. He's trying to put himself back together and he plans on apologizing. And then a form shows up. It's somewhat foggy at the hot spring they're at. He thinks it's just another monkey because there were monkeys in this hot spring. Because the old man said that it's only his family knows about it, so no one should be there in theory. But then it's Asumi, because of course it is. They both freak out. He's about to leave, only to have the monkeys steal his clothing, so he can't leave. Then 2 of the older students show up, because of course they do. He then hears it, and the whole situation goes from bad to worse for him. She more or less explains that it'll be social death if he were to pop up, so he has to stay under the water, and so then he does. One of them thought they heard a voice, the 2 students. They said no. It's also then explained that the other girl, the blonde-haired one, her grandfather is the cranky old man, so that's why she knows of it. Now Noriyuki's really screwed. Asumi allows Noriyuki to go get some air before being forced back down. Asumi then continues the conversation, asking the 2 girls why they invited her to the secret hot springs. The one who actually had questions is somewhat dazed and a bit dense, so she didn't ask. The friend who actually family kind of owns the hot spring nudges her forward. And so then she asks, what's the story between Noriyuki and her? Asumi is about to say that there really isn't a story to tell, but then the student goes all in on asking whether they do a whole bunch of adult things all the time, that they even just censor out, which is really funny. Asumi just is stunned by this. The friend, the blonde-haired friend who, says that the dark-haired one is freaking her out, the one who asked the questions. The one who asked the questions then says that she's an adult, so that Asumi can be honest about it. Asumi then just says that they were just senpai and kohai in school, but the student gets close and ends up touching Noriyuki's leg, which then has Noriyuki freaking out. One asking questions says there's something squishy down there, and Asumi then says it must have been some sort of animal, like one of the monkeys, but then accidentally grabs a squirrel, and her fear of rodents is still there, so then she freaks out and grabs onto Noriyuki by accident. Now Noriyuki needs air, because now he's freaking out. The one who's been asking questions asks one more. Asumi stopped the kiss, and for some odd reason, and asks if she doesn't love Noriyuki, then the student seems to want to, which is extremely weird, before I can continue with what she was going to say. Noriyuki then freaks out because he needs air, and he tries to burst out to get some air, but Asumi stops him. She then grabs a bunch of air and gives him air by kissing him. She then pops back up and then says something in the student asking questions' ear, which makes her freak out and say that she's not mature enough, and then she runs away. Asumi then teases Noriyuki that he was able to survive, and that on their way walking home, Noriyuki must have explained that he was there by invitation by the old man, as Asumi thought that he was just spying on women. He then says no, that's of course not the case. She keeps teasing him, calling him perv and stuff. He then asks about the mouth-to-mouth so that he can get some oxygen. Believing it was a kiss, she then says no, it was just mouth-to-mouth to give him air. She then says in an inner monologue that she can't tell him how she really feels, as it shows another flashback-ish, where she found a book with, I think, would be his dad's name, because it's not his name. So then on the final page we see a boat person bringing someone to the island, and we see that it's Asumi's dad, and who still thinks, even after all these years, that Noriyuki and Asumi are dating. So, great. Now we get that shenanigans going on here. So that was that chapter. That was, again, this arc continues to be rather fun and entertaining, if not completely and utterly ridiculous. So, yeah. I don't know where it's going. I just know there's going to be a lot more shenanigans and so on. So, at this point, I'm just going to keep kind of going with it. At this point, I'm a bit too far in to quit on the series. Otherwise, this is... It's fine. I would still recommend it, but... this one... I don't know anymore. Anyway, I'd probably give this chapter, I don't even know. Do I give it a C or a B? I'll probably give it a B. It was a fine chapter. It continues to do what this arc has been doing rather well, which is the chemistry between Asumi and Noriyuki. So, we will see how far it goes. Now, we are on to Undead Unluck. The chapter starts off with Apocalypse giving out all the quests, and says that the quests are for the 100th penalty are at stake. And that round of quests is for everyone. So everyone living on Earth could take on the quests and can participate. And the quests are killing or neutralizing the Uma of Spring. The reward for that would be the Artifact of Aegis. Neutralizing the Uma of Summer would be the reward of the Negator of Unchange. The capture of Uma Autumn, the reward would be the addition of Uma Ghost. And to neutralize the Uma of Winter, the reward would be the Artifact Remember. Their deadline is December 31st, and if all the quests are not done by the deadline, the penalty will be the addition of Uma Revolution. That means, I don't know, but they're going over it, and now everyone can be involved in these quests. So, Juiz plans on getting all the round table members, like all their people together. But then Billy joins in. He's one of the negators who found Titania. Billy then says that if they don't get all the quests, that the 100th penalty will be there. But he says it's not going to be easy to do it. And he says if someone winds up dead, they'll have a lot more trouble with the 101st penalty, which will be when, I guess, God comes down and kills everyone. And he says that seals the deal in their defeat. So he thinks they need to take out 3 out of the 4 of them quickly without any of them being killed. So he wants to just drop some nukes on the Umas. None of them are overly agreeable to that plan. Titania asks why he's bringing something up like that, because it would involve so many innocent people's deaths. He then says, basically, who cares as long as they don't lose type of thing. He more or less is saying that the sacrifice will be well worth it if they win in the end. And he's saying that Juiz is being too naive, trying to look for the best outcome and everything. Well, that's not going to always be the case, and is more or less saying that they can't win the way they are now. And he ends up realizing that and saves Fuko and Chikara while everyone else jumps into action. And he says none of you can kill God. He apparently pieced together certain bits of it. He said there's something he felt was odd going on, and it goes to all sorts of things, like one of the unchanged, or the negators, the one who was invisible, was found and was taken, and that's why they failed that one. And the fact that Rip was able to find them, Andy starts to piece it together. Him and end up more or less putting their weapons to his throat. Billy then kind of taunts Juiz and says, what is she going to do? We then find out one of the negators was hit in the throat. I think. That's what it's sort of implied at. But he got hit, and he's hurt and pseudo-dying. Billy then is happy that he was able to get Unbreakable, which is the Ishin, the one who was hit, his negator power. He's happy about it, but then the speed guy bursts forward and kicks him in the face, breaking his neck. Titania's upset. Then the speedy guy then says he's a traitor, so it shouldn't matter. But both Andy and the realized something was weird with Billy's body, who then zips past them perfectly healed, so I don't know what that means. He then says something, and it looks like his power might be able to shift some of his harm around his body, because he moves up and has a broken leg, or maybe he just didn't heal, I don't know. He more or less is spouting some stuff about how those devoid of light and bearing the weight of negating are forced to fight, and why should they be concerned about the incompetent masses? Their lives should be sacrificed, and that he says, plan to do it, otherwise it's unfair. So then we've realized that he's a part of the Under, and that he has some sort of artifact, I think, or it's either another negator hunter or an Umas that he's just using to pick up the round table, and he says he's taking the round table and it's now the property of the Under, and they're the ones who are going to kill God. So, ironically enough, and that's the end of the chapter. So it would seem a traitor arc happened and ended all in one chapter. It was surprising, to say the least, as we didn't even get to know anything about Billy. But, I mean, adding another major villain, especially one who has, to some degree, a connection, is an interesting thing to do. So, I wonder how that'll go in the long term. So, overall, I thought that was a fine chapter, and look forward to seeing where it goes from there. I'd give that one a B, where it's going and how everything will go. We'll probably end up learning retrospectively who Billy really was and why he's doing this. So they'll be good at chapters as it goes on. We're going to move on to Mashle, Magic and Muscles. And the chapter starts with Dot sending over 100 bombs to the girl he was fighting, the Fifth Fang, blowing it up all around her, but not actually hitting her. She then realizes he missed on purpose, and Dot explains he doesn't like picking on girls so that she can get lost before he changes his mind. And she says, okay, as she's sobbing, though I don't know whether she's enamored with him or not, or if she's just crying that she's and thanks him that she can leave. The other friend who was with Dot is about to tell him he's amazing when some sort of rock creature comes in. Dot then gets in the way to save him. The rock creature goes away, and then the Fourth Fang shows up, who's some sort of rock thing. The girl apologizes for not being able to finish them off. He then summons some more stuff to attack Dot and Co. Dot, realizing he's kind of hurt, knows he's in trouble. The girl knows that the Fourth Fang is a prodigy, and she realizes that the Fourth Fang will finish things up pretty easily, but then out of nowhere a big sword comes in and hits the Fourth Fang, destroying his spell, and they're really confused by what happened, when out of nowhere I'm guessing the head of the Antlers, the class that they're all in, their house, Rayan Amos, arrives, and the Fourth Fang says that he was supposed to be gone. Dot then says that he's the ace of the Antler House. The Fourth Fang tries to reason that he's just a student, nothing to fear. The Fourth Fang tries to talk it out and surprise attack him, but Rain is not easily distracted. Says that he's not going to waste time on him. Has 1,000 swords and hits the Fourth Fang with them. Dot is surprised to see what the Visionary is capable of. The girl plans on transferring to Adler House, so she'll probably be around if she actually does, which would be really actually funny. The Fourth Fang is not happy about it, and so then wanting to escape the whole thing with his life to some degree. It says that he regrets his choices and to forgive him, but the Rain doesn't believe him, and believes actions and not words, and doesn't trust scum like him, and he plans on beating him into thinking he'll never do the same thing again. Dot is hopeful he's friendly to them because they're in the same dorm. Rain then tells him why are they still there and they should get out of there, and plans on dragging the details out of the Fourth Fang. They agreed to get out. Dot thinks he's harsh. Then we see the friend, who also has a white streak in his hair like Rain, say that Rain is his brother. Again, I apologize, I don't remember anyone's name, but this also puts out, I guess, one of my theories where I thought where in this world it seemed like you can only have one kid, and this is clearly wrong. You can have more, but I still don't know what the rules are about it, though, so whatever. Rain ends up leaving and walking down the hallway. Apparently the headmaster said there were Incident Zero agents. What that means, I have no idea. He says they're concealing their power, but then he meets Mash, who's singing getting nutrition again and again as he has cream puffs. Rain then sees that he just has immense pressure, and Rain steps up to him to attack him, which is not going to be good. And he plans on having a short investigation, and Mash just goes, oh, as he keeps eating. What that means, I have no idea. But that was funny. God, I don't know where that goes half the time. Oy. What a ridiculous manga. But yes, that's it. That was the end of the chapter. And again, as per usual, it's one of the more entertaining ones I read each week, as it just is extremely ridiculous. So I don't know. I would give that one a B. That was a fun one, as we might be gaining a new character to the cast with the Fifth Fang, and we're meeting one of the more overpowered characters next to Mash himself. So yeah, with that, we're going to move on to Chainsaw Man, and oh my, I don't know where anything is going anymore. Especially in this. So it starts off with the Hell Devil still pretty much being dead, but one of the people, I guess, who summoned him gave him more blood and said that he can die after his job is done, because the Chainsaw Man is still there. A door to hell opens up and grabs Chainsaw Man. Makima then says, or goes in the most unshocked way imaginable, oh dear, he's been cast into hell, hasn't he? Meanwhile, the other guy, the one who trained Power and Denji, has a gun pointed at her, and she explains there's no use to shoot because, as per her contract with the Prime Minister, anyone who attacks her, it will be changed into appropriate illnesses and accidents across Japan. So she can't die, which is ridiculous. She asks why the other guy hasn't lowered his gun. He then asks why she looks so calm despite Chainsaw being in hell, and she explains that that's because he'll more or less still show up when she needs him. The other guy's confused. Then she explains that she's a huge fan of his, and that she then calls him the hero of hell, Chainsaw Man, and that she then goes on about some of his lore, I guess, even in hell, or in any of the devil's homeland, I guess. That if you cry for help, he will come, and the devils are targeted by him, and the devils who called for help are cut up and killed too, because he just kills everyone. He is, because of what he does, he's marked and killed by many devils, but he revs his engine and rises again and again, so he just can't be killed and just kills everyone indiscriminately from what it seemingly goes. Some react angrily towards him and try to fight him often, others run away, but it doesn't matter, and others worship him. That's why he had so many followers when it was just Denji. But there's another, and then she explains there's another reason why most of them fear him. It's because when the Chainsaw Man eats another devil, their names are erased from existence. The other character, Denji's teacher, can't even comprehend that power, and Makima explains it's only natural because the names of the devils that are eaten, they're erased from history. She then asks if he remembers what happened with the Nazis and did to the Jews, is what she explains, and he doesn't even know who they are, which is ridiculous. She explains so many other ones like World War II and so many other things. She explains they're just gone, nuclear weapons and so on, because all the devils that had their names were erased because he ate them and destroyed what they were. She also explains that apparently humans had sixth sense, and there was a light star that brought fear and would break children's minds. There was also 4 possible conclusions other than death at the end of living beings' lifespans. Well, that's certainly interesting. I didn't even comprehend that when I first read it. They all ceased to exist because he ate the devils that were associated with them, so no one remembered them, and except for her, who she even says she doesn't quite remember everything, but she remembers all the devils that fought Chainsaw Man. The other character then explains that it's all a bit too big for his head to wrap around, and he says, is she going to use that to make the world bad? She then says no, or she says, do you believe the Prime Minister of Japan would make a contract with such a evil devil? He doesn't answer. She then explains she has the power to control those she believes are lesser than herself, and if she fought the Chainsaw Man and won, she would be able to control the Chainsaw Devil, and she wants to use the Chainsaw Man to create a better world and get rid of things like death, war, hunger, and all sorts of other things to make humans better. He more or less says what would happen if you lose, and she then explains it would be a dream come true, as she's such a fan of him, that she would be eaten by him, and being a part of him would be no greater honor, from what she said. We see the door to hell, and it's being cut open as he bursts back through, with so many blood and body parts all around, as he just sort of descends in this absolutely horrible, menacing way. Oh my goodness. That is a manga that just keeps on just doing things that make you want to read every week. I don't know. I would give that chapter an A. That was a very good chapter. I don't really know where it's gonna go. I'm assuming Denji's still alive, or still a part of the story to some degree, whereas I don't think it's gonna be just Puccin anymore, or like as just the Chainsaw Man from now on, but I don't know. Ironically enough, to some degree, I don't know whether it's a prediction or not, but I thought this could happen, where all sorts of bad stuff happens, and he eventually just goes into the wilderness and stuff and hides from everything, meets another character, blah blah blah. Something like that. It's almost seeming like it's leading that way. Is will Makima get her way? I don't know, but I'm very interested to see how that goes. But otherwise, I don't know. Like I said, I'd give that one an A, if I didn't say it already. And yeah, that's all the chapters for this week. One Piece is on break, but my hero comes back, so we can at least see one conclusion somewhere, or the continuation of whatever war arc is going on at the given storyline. So, if you enjoyed my somewhat coherent ramblings on these chapters, leave a like. Lets me know whether I'm doing a fair job or not. And with that, thank you for watching.